This year went by really fast. I can't believe it's December again. Since last Christmas, not much has happened because Mom had surgery, so we weren't able to go out much. But I still learned and did a bunch of things. Like, I learned a new card game, which is not new, but I just learned it recently, called Magic the Gathering, which is a kind of basic game, but at the same time kind of complex if you don't know the rules. There's two main styles that people play, although there are more. I don't know how the rules work off the top of my head, but there are more. The main styles I've learned how to play are Standard and Commander. How Magic itself works is you have 5 different colors, and you can combine those colors, usually in 2 or 3s, to make a deck of 60 cards for Standard. And those colors are red, black, blue, white, and green. My personal favorites are Dimir, which is blue and black, and those are more horror-based cards. So you can have a combination of like blue and black cards in your deck, and once you have 60 cards, it's a standard deck. Standard works as in you have 20 life points, and if you have a creature out, you can use it to attack your opponent, and if they don't block with a creature they have out, then they take however much damage that card would deal as damage to their life points. There are ways to regain life points, but those are only through certain cards, and there's just no core mechanic to regain health points. Commander is a slightly more complicated version, where you have a 100-card deck, where there's 99 cards in your main deck, and then your commander. The commander, even if it dies, if a card normally dies, it would go to the graveyard, but the commander can go back to the command zone, where you can bring them out again for the normal mana cost +2. Other than that, the major differences in Commander are you can only have one copy of a standard creature card or legendary creature card. You can't just fill your deck full of one creature card. You can only have one. And instead of 20 life points, you have 40. But if the commander card deals 21 damage to an opponent, even if they have 1,000,000 health left, they are instantly dead once they reach 21 damage from a commander. If multiple commanders attack a person, they're tracked as 2 different sources of damage. So if I have a commander that deals 14 damage to someone, and someone else has a commander that deals 14 damage to the same person, it would be 2 separate instances of 14 commander damage and not 28 commander damage total. So they would still survive in that situation. But so that was fun. I've made quite a few decks, and I have a few decks that I bought. The first commander deck, and probably my favorite deck that I bought, was a blue and black horror themed deck, where whenever I played a horror card, a horror nightmare card, my opponent would exile cards from the top of their library until they exiled a creature card. And exile is sort of like a graveyard, but there's no way to get those cards back. And for every card an opponent had in exile, I would get a 1/1 counter on my commander, which made it incredibly easy to get like a 40/40 commander that was just unstoppable. That's probably the favorite deck I have, although I have quite a few others that I like. That one's my favorite. Some of the other things I've done this year was last Christmas, I believe, we got a PlayStation 4, or PS4 for short, and I got quite a few games for it, and I've played a bunch of them and beaten all of them. And what those games was the Dark Souls trilogy. The Dark Souls series, Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, are all games which sort of redefine the RPG system, which means role-playing game. They were known for their difficulty when they first came out, although by today's standards, they're easier than other Souls-like games. Souls-like just means incredibly difficult games. But I still struggled with them, seeing as I didn't know how they worked. I knew more than I would have if I went in blind, because I've seen videos and stuff, but I still struggled with the games, and they were fun. I also played Bloodborne, which I bought on my own, but it was also made by From Software, who made the Dark Souls trilogy. And that game was like Dark Souls if it was horror. It was great. I love that game. I've replayed it like 5 times, and I love it. The main mechanic of that game that makes it different is that there's only 27 weapons, but all of them have a trick form, which makes them unique. So the weapon that I first beat the game with was called Ludwig's Holy Blade. Basically, in its normal form, it was just a short sword which attacked fast but dealt little damage. In its transformed form, you attached the scabbard to it, which made it basically a claymore, which you specialized piercing damage in, and it's one of the highest damage sources in the game. So there's a bunch of unique weapons like that, and they're all great and unique, and it's fun. The bosses were harder than the Dark Souls 1 and 2 as well, which was great, and I've 100%ed that game. The other FromSoft and final FromSoft game I beat on the PS4 was called Elden Ring. It's the newest one in the series, which just recently announced and has celebrated its DLC release. I haven't played it, but I've heard about it, and it seems good. But I played Elden Ring itself, which was a really fun game. It's very open world, so there is no one set path, and everyone's build will probably be different unless you're following a guide. And it's a fun game. Very difficult, but at the same time way easier than some of the other games, because when I first beat it, I just abused the sorcery system, and because of how much intelligence I had, I was one-shot in some bosses which would normally be difficult fights, which was very much not intended, but still really fun. It was more difficult setup than the boss fight, which is kind of funny. Other than that, there was 2 more games we got for Christmas for the PS4, which was Prince of Persia. I don't remember what it's called. It was like The Lost Sands of Time or something. I don't remember what it's called. Anyways, it's a Metroidvania, which means while it's still a difficult game, it's 2D and more platform difficulty than combat difficulty. That was fun. There wasn't very many hard platforming challenges, but there was still a few hard ones, and the bosses were cool. The final game for the PS4 that I played was Stray, which is a story-focused game where you are a stray cat who gets separated from its friends, and you're in a city full of robots, basically. But instead of being like some really powerful person, you're literally just a cat who likes to take naps, scratch at doors and carpets, meow repeatedly at cameras. It's fun. That was a fairly short game, but it was very sad, and it was fun. I liked it. Oh yeah, one of the, recently this year, I started reading a lot of Stephen King books, which the books themselves were great, but the endings were awful. Some of the only ones I've read was, I don't remember what it was called, but it was like about vampires. Salem's Lot, that was it. It was about vampires. It was fun. The priest in it showed up in a different of Stephen King's books, which was a bit surprising to me, but that was a good book. I don't remember it well because I read it like during summer, but it was fun. Other than that, there was It, which was a horror story with a clown who wasn't really a clown, but took the appearance of whatever person was appearing for's worst fear, except when it didn't, because there were multiple times where it just showed up looking normal, so that could trick people. That one was really good. It was a bit weird because it switched between children's view from 27 years ago and adult view from 27 years after they were children, because it shows up every 27 years. The ending had some scenes that didn't need to be there and was just not good for an ending, but the rest of the book was great, and it was actually creepy, which kind of surprised me. And other than that, there was the Dark Towers series, which I think was like seven books, I think. And that followed the story of a gunslinger who is trying to reach the Dark Tower, which I don't really remember why he wanted to get there, but it was something. And on the way there, he encountered 3 people who joined him, which was Eddie, I believe was his name, and he was a drug addict. And he eventually became a proper gunslinger, but he started out as just a drug addict. I liked his story. He was cool. He had a brother who was an asshole to him, but other than that, I liked his character. There was Jake, who was a young boy. He was sort of like a younger brother to Eddie. And later in the book, in like an alternate universe, they were actually siblings. But Jake ended up getting kidnapped multiple times and was probably more of like a Dermot to the adventure than anything else, but I still liked him. He was fun. And he had like a dog beaver platypus thing called Ache. Or Oi, sorry, it was called Oi. It's just called Jake Ache because I couldn't speak properly. It was a weird creature, but it was fun. And then the final person who showed up was a woman in a wheelchair who has like 4 different names I don't remember. She had multiple personalities in her head, and it was hard remembering all the names. Other than that, the Darkest Hour series itself was really good. I see why my dad says it's his favorite series. The ending was awful. Like, there was very little that was good about the ending. But it was still a good read. And that's pretty much everything. Oh, right. We are planning a hunting trip soon, and we did go hunting once earlier in the year. We didn't see anything, and it was just small game hunting, so we went into the woods looking for like rabbits or squirrels or whatever. We didn't see anything, which was a bit unfortunate. But it was still fun. There wasn't much to see, but it was peaceful. Although there was, at some point, someone who just started firing guns rapidly. I don't think they saw anything and were just, like, firing into the ground or trees or whatever because they were annoyed or something, but other than that, it was pretty peaceful and kind of fun. We also went plinking, which is in a shooting range. They set up these, like, metal target things, which if you hit them, make a plink sound. And that was just fun. And then I'm pretty sure that was the only interesting things I've done this year.